Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and today I'm very excited to introduce our guest. Our guest is the founder of 24 high-tech consumer goods, health, and manufacturing companies. His products have been sold in more than 11,000 stores, messed up there, in 23 different countries. He has users of his tech products in 148 countries across the globe. So I'm very happy to introduce our guest, Chris Joyce, the founder and CEO of Gusher. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here, Phil. Glad to be here.
So I talked about how you founded 24 different types of companies. That's an impressive array of a portfolio of companies. But I want you to introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Basically, I've been creating companies for a very long time. Everything from manufacturing to SaaS, fintech, medical device, consumer goods. I just like creating companies. If I was an artist, I may be painting, but I'm not an artist. I can't paint. I can't write. Maybe I can speak a little bit, but I'm good at creating companies. So I like creating a lot of companies. I like starting things.
You like starting things and then hiring the right people to build it to the success, right?
Absolutely. I mean, our main company, we've got more than 350 companies in our portfolio that we started, created, launched. And so we just keep growing. We like to start them and get them going.
I love that. And how did you get into that world of building companies and just have a portfolio of thousands of companies soon?
Sure. I started out really young. So I started out in business very, very young. I'm talking like when I was 6 years old, I started my first business, although I don't count those businesses when I was a kid, obviously in my numbers. But really, it's just progression. You do it, you start it, you get going, and things start falling into place. And that's a really important thing. I never had it where I had all the answers ahead of time. I didn't have it where there was a really specific plan, although I write very detailed business plans. Almost never do they go ahead and follow that. It's really just getting out there and taking action as the primary point of execution to get a startup going. It's all about action. It's all about executing.
So let's go back to that 6 years old when you started your entrepreneurial journey. What was the crust? What was the light that ignited this fire and passion to start businesses?
Well, sure. Well, at the time, it was Spider-Man. It was a comic book. It was a Spider-Man comic book. And in the back of it, they used to have, I don't know if they have now, but they used to have little classified ads. And there was like a business opportunity thing in it. I didn't know what that was. And it said, send $5 to get these burpee seeds, like watermelon seeds or sunflower seeds, vegetables, stuff like that. And sure enough, I got this little box of 50 packs of seeds. And you're supposed to sell them for $1. And so I went from door to door and I went and sold those seeds and I grossed $50. And I didn't use those terminology back then on a $5 investment. And so I netted $45 and I was off to the races. That was a good time.
So all from a comic book, did you launch this crazy career launching startups?
You could say that.
So let's fast forward. When did you start creating your first high-tech business, like the one that started you on this journey of having a portfolio of 300 companies under your Gusher?
Sure. First high-tech company was probably when I was 18, 19. So we started at the time what was called an audio tech service bureau. There were voicemail companies, everything else, and we wrote the software and code and started doing that. And that led to a bigger thing. And so it was really doing, audio tech service bureau when I was a really young kid. And at that time, I was in New York. I was going to NYU, and we were trying to go ahead and figure out really, what to do, try different businesses. And the audio tech industry was just taking off. It was just becoming before there was the internet, really. I mean, there was the internet and there was out there, but nothing that really you commercialized.
So you started down this road. You must have had some crazy memories on some of the businesses that you made, helping people, creating. I can't believe that you have 11,000 stores selling your products. What was it like trying to get the first product in a store?
Well, I mean, that's really kind of like what people don't understand is that as a founder, you've got to do that. You can't outsource that. That's something that you've got to do, that sales validation. So I remember it to this day, and that was a physical product. It was a low carbohydrate roll, a low carbohydrate blueberry muffin. And I was in Pennsylvania at the time, and going for stores was a really brutal thing. And I got a meeting with a store chain that actually doesn't exist right now. It got bought out. But at the time, it was a 17 store chain, and I didn't know exactly what to say or anything else. But as a founder, in hindsight, and people have to understand this, you literally have a superpower when it comes to being a founder. And so being a founder, you walk into these sales. I'm going to clean my lens just real briefly on that. Anyway. So as a founder, you're a superhero. You have this superpower, even though you think you may not, and you may not be the best at it, you still know a hell of a lot more than the person on the other side of that table that may be buying your product. And so when I went in, there was a little bit of charisma. I was a little bit younger, obviously. And this hard ass buyer, I remember to this day, supposedly the hardest buyer in the Northeast, she put us in the 17 store chain and took a chance on us. And literally that's how it started. It was just me driving frozen product up in the middle of winter with the air conditioning on to go ahead and put it in a freezer. And that's how we got started.
What is it like managing a huge portfolio of companies that you started? Like you're probably one of the more versatile entrepreneurs that we've had on this podcast, where you have multiple companies under your portfolio, under your umbrella. What is like a day-to-day like?
A day-to-day like, and I don't exaggerate on this, all right? You have extremely what would be perceived in the beginning stages of entrepreneurship as extremes. So you have these very, very high highs and these very, very low lows. And one minute you're like, oh my God, we got this great deal and things are cranking. And the next minute, you're like, oh my God, we just lost all these people on this one deal. They just walked away from it. And what are we going to do? And, after a while from doing business, you realize that that's just business. It's not anything big. It's not anything that should give you sphincter flutter. Literally, you wake up and that's what you set out for, and that's part of building it. You can get a job and you can have an existence, but at the same time, you're putting your future into somebody else's hands that is dealing with those ups and those downs. And so, typically, the smaller the company in the beginning stages, the more extreme those ups and downs feel. But the thing is, as a founder, you got to understand is that none of that is life or death stuff. None of it. Zero is going to impact you, because the next day you're going to wake up, and if you decided to do what you want to do, you just keep going. I mean, it doesn't matter what the world or the universe or people throw at you. You just keep going and do it.
So did you set out to be someone who has this megalith of companies under your umbrella, or did you look to be like, I just want to start one company, grow that, just enjoy that business, and then somehow you got thrust into a mega entrepreneur?
Well, here's the thing, okay? I never set out to have lots of businesses or anything else. But what I found out about myself, and it really was a personal thing, is I get extremely bored after a certain stage. So I would start a business, I would grow it. Let's say it reached about, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, whatever it is. I get bored. I didn't want to do it. I would wake up and say, I don't really care about this business anymore. So after a while, I started realizing that it was really the creation. I didn't like doing businesses that other people did. I didn't like doing Me Too deals. I liked painting my version, my DNA on whatever those deals are. And that's what really brought me maybe a sense of value, a sense of worth, a sense of enjoyment, sense of whatever the hell it may be. But I like doing business. I had somebody ask me the other day, what hobbies do you have? And yeah, I lift weights in the morning, but that's not a hobby, and so I thought to myself, well, and I said to him, I drove around, got up early Saturday morning, and I had a coffee, and I just drove around and looked at businesses and I had products, and I go, that's what I do. I love it. That's the way I'm wired to do it,
I feel a kinship to you because I haven't started that many businesses, but I walk around and I see businesses and I'm like, okay, how can I make them money through podcasting? Because I
Right.
love podcasting. So it's like, okay, can I do a brand awareness campaign with them on a podcast? Or can I do like a straight sales? Or how can I use a podcast to help this business make money? Because it's radio for a business now. Podcasting is just radio.
Yeah, but
Um,
also like I think like with the podcasting side of it, the thing that most people don't get is really what I call is not necessarily immediate impact, but you get waves of impact. So let's say it's you're going there with an initial thought process of what this podcast is going to be. I'd almost equate it to way paper advertising used to be. So you would used to go ahead and take out an ad, do whatever in newspaper, but there would be a hangout effect, meaning that it would be around and you still get customers a half a year, 2 years, 5 years later. That podcasts actually have a buildup effect. So it's something that the more that you do it, it has a build-up effect that compounds over time, and it compounds over time dramatically sometimes.
Oh yeah, I know my most recent client, 18 months doing the podcast, he's just hit 3,000 downloads, and that's just moving seven figures to his business every year because it's just constantly reinforcing the idea that he is a authority figure. He knows what he's talking about, and he's sharing his knowledge. So it's just a wealth of compounding interest, and it's just going to explode over time.
Absolutely.
And it's just like starting a business. When you start a business, it's slow at the beginning, but the more you hustle, the more you put into it, the compounding effect jumps. And I kind of want to talk about SaaS for a moment because
Sure.
you're a startup. You've built SaaS businesses. And for my audience, if you're not sure what a SaaS is, it's a software as a service. So Netflix is a prime example of SaaS. Sure. What does it take for someone to have the guts or the fortitude to start a SaaS without money?
Well, a SaaS, well, that's a good question. All right. So the first thing you gotta realize is, all right, are you going to be a technical founder or a non-technical founder? Now, even if you're a technical founder, you shouldn't be the technical founder. Let me explain what I mean by that. So as a founder, as a CEO, as the person that's creating this company from the ground up, it shouldn't be the type of person that you're sitting there and you're writing that code. So if I'm a startup founder and I'm creating a food company, I shouldn't be sitting there creating the formulations. I shouldn't necessarily be there doing all the baking or all the steps or whatever it may be. Well, the same thing with a SaaS company. So typically a SaaS company requires an extended team. So it's not usually a one-person type of team or two-person team that can create an effective SaaS, something that has, you'll hear the term MVP. I don't mean minimum viable product, something that is a market viable product in the marketplace, meaning it's self-sustaining, it generates revenue, can breathe life. You're not going to typically do that with one person or two person or even three or four typically. You need an extended tech team. So the point is, in terms of being a SaaS founder, your real job there is to implement or create that DNA. What the hell are you about? How are you going to go ahead and view this company? What are the people actually buying into in terms of an idea when you're creating that? So almost in a way you're creating, and I use this word loosely, when you create a SaaS company, it's not a technical solution. You are first and foremost, and I say this to every founder that does it, you are first and foremost a marketing and sales company. And in order to do that, you almost in a way have to have that church, that philosophy, that authenticity in terms of being able to resonate with the customer first and foremost from the very beginning stages before you write a line of code. That is the more important thing to take when you're creating a SaaS company.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. And I kind of want to touch on maybe some tips for people looking to start their own startup.
Sure.
And deal with all the kind of gray areas of entrepreneurship, because we talk about like the success. There's countless testimonials out there of the success that entrepreneurs get, but going into the gray areas, the things that most people don't talk about, is there anything specific like people should watch out for?
Well, I think that the biggest thing in the beginning stage is because you're 100% alone is the aspect of self-sabotage and revisiting a decision that you made when you were sane. So let me ask you a question, Phil. You
Sure.
decided to go down this podcast road. You decided to do this thing for a very specific reason, okay? That resulted in certain things happening to you. When you woke up in the beginning stages in the morning, did you feel like crap, and did you have doubt? Did you have anxiety that you were on the right road?
Constantly. I'm still having those.
Right.
that still
Constantly,
pops.
right. But here's the thing. Did you let it stop you?
200 episodes later, no, I don't think it stopped me. I think it only
But
it
that's
encouraged me
what
to do
people
more.
do. So it's like they get up, and it's like almost in a way in their head, they replay that decision over and over and over and over. And I think that when you made that decision, it's kind of like going out on a long journey. You don't turn around part way just because there may be some rough seas, or you don't turn it around just because it may be cold or whatever it may be. All right. You're just there. You made the decision, stick with the decision, see where that decision leads. You'll get to the end of the book that you're writing, and it'll have a happy ending as long as you don't stop. That's really what it comes down to.
So just keep punching through until you come to the end of the journey, whether it's a positive or negative, you still learn something in essence.
I don't think it's necessarily a negative ever. And I'll tell you why. I've seen founder after founder do this. And are there failures? Yes. But do those failures typically lead someplace good, someplace maybe fundamentally different, someplace they didn't think of? Even in your case, there was a variant of that happened. All right. That's what it's about. It really is about the journey. It's starting and just never stopping. And that's called being a human being. You can stop, you can settle, you can go ahead and retire and die and take the easy road, or you can get out there and create and listen to that little voice that's inside you and let it out that says that you can do it, or that you should be doing something different.
Great advice. I want to touch on the book that you recommended, because I find it a very interesting book, because it's not one that I've ever seen one of the entrepreneurs out of the 200 guests that I've had. Why did you choose Dr. Seuss's Green Egg and Ham?
All right, you'll fill in the blanks. All right. You fill in the blank. Actually, I'm going to give you a three example story that leads to that. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to say 3 lines, or say whatever the hell it is, and you fill in the blank. Let's see how great you are. I know that you're based in Canada, correct?
Yes.
Well, I don't think anything's different. If I do this in front of a crowd, they all get it in the US. All right. Mostly get it in Canada. So I'm going to say, I think I can. I think I can. I
think I can.
Beautiful. Now you're in elementary school. Let's go to the next thing when it comes to business deals. All right. Let's see. I will huff, I will puff, and I will
blow the house down.
Damn right. All right. Now let's go to graduate school. You're going to get your PhD here right now. Right. I will not eat them in a box. I will not eat them with a.
I forget a fox.
Beautiful.
No.
I will not eat them here or there. I will not eat them
anywhere.
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them
in a can.
Damn, I am. Come on.
Sam, I forgot.
But anyway,
be fair. It's been a few years since I read the book.
Well, hear me out, though. You still got it mostly right. And most people actually get it mostly, if not perfectly right. All right. Mm-hmm. There's a reason. Now, this relates to business in a couple ways. When you're telling a story, which most of business is, you're pitching in some way in the beginning. You're pitching to recruit a team. You're pitching for investment dollars. You're pitching to go ahead and get on the stores of a shelf. You're pitching with a supplier to be able to get a better deal, whatever the hell it may be. You've learned everything you need to know from that example, from way back when you were 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. All right. You keep it simple. You keep it visual, and you tell a story in a simple way, so simple that an 8-year-old can understand it. And all those stories typically use the theory of threes or the rule of threes. You say something in a different way 3 times, and you just use big images. I come across all these pitch decks where they have all these lines, and they're telling all these complex things and everything else. And I literally, as a litmus test, I put it in front of one of my kids, and I'm like, what are they saying there? And they're like, I have no clue. And then in other ones, they say it brilliantly. They say it simply. So simple, an 8-year-old can understand it. Well, if you can put it in the language, the verbiage, with the visuals that so simple an 8-year-old can understand it, you'll get every damn thing you want.
Well, I have to revisit all my pitches now because it's not really geared towards 8-year-olds. So maybe I have to take a look at that. And that's a great piece of advice. Keep it as simple as possible so that oh my God, I'm so glad I have you on the show, sharing sharing your wisdom.
Sure.
I know you don't generally do 5-year goals because you said you don't create them, but where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It's hard because I look at it this way. I feel like every day is a gift. So, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, hey, thank God I got today. Absolutely. Let's make the most of it. But really, I don't think in terms of that because, when you've already done businesses, it's really more about impact. And you're like this in terms of what you're doing. I'm not here necessarily to go ahead and start another business and start another consumer goods company or whatever it may be. I fundamentally believe that talent is spread evenly across this globe. Opportunity is not. And so we're fixing that by creating the greatest startup engine ever. And we're going about it with untapping human potential is what my goal is, as much as possible before I tap out. Not that I plan on tapping out, but that's really what it's about, untapping human potential.
I like that. In your years, from 6 years old, from your first little entrepreneurial venture to today, you must have accumulated a lot of memories that just cement why you do what you do, helping the people. Do you care to share maybe one or two of them with us? Either one with helping a client win, or one that you were able to succeed on yourself?
Sure. Well, I'll give a couple clients real quickly. All right. So we've got I think she's 76, 77-year-old grandma in South Africa. I kid you not. All right. That literally started a business, started a deal. We were like, what the hell is this? You got to be kidding me. And sure enough, she ends up getting a QVC deal out of it. I mean, she got the product, took 1.5 years, 2 years to come to fruition, but she got a QVC deal out of it. We have another client, another customer. We call them partners, all right, because you become partners with them, a family really after a while. We have another partner that basically he got laid off during COVID, marketing manager, really great guy. Used to be, I think, was he on the Olympic team or something for cycling, something like that. And he started a business, but he kept smiling and talking about another idea he had. And so I said, hey, Mike, you should start this other business only because it makes you smile. And 1.5 years later, he won Product of the Year in the trucking industry for basically the device and the accessory and the line of products that they created. And so, we have stories like that all the time because all these entrepreneur stories are they're fundamentally different. They're fundamentally different people in so many different ways. But I tell you what, they're all extremely honest to a fault. They don't fake it till they make it. They don't buy into that philosophy. If they need help, they ask for it, but they just go for it and they take the steps. Some are slower than others. Some are really fast in terms of the steps that they take. And there's no right or wrong way so long as you just get out on that road and start.
Love it. So how should someone go about starting their entrepreneurial journey?
The first step?
Yeah, the first step. What would you suggest they do? Because my audience, they're either 9-to-5ers and they're kind of scared to do that jump because they're like, I hear all the risks. I've been told that the internet's a scam, or there's like all this negative brouhaha about online businesses and being an entrepreneur and the fear and the risks there are.
I don't say this lightly, okay? I fundamentally believe that almost anybody can be an entrepreneur, so long as you're physically able, mentally able, etc. You don't have anything preventing you from doing that. All right. But having said that, we're taught from a very young age that the voice inside of us, that you're supposed to push it down, that you're supposed to almost in a way crap on it. You're not supposed to listen to that voice that tells you that you can do it, that you should be doing it, that whatever. So it's a very, very tiny voice. It's a tiny speck. And most times when people reach a certain age, they fall into a certain pattern of living and they kind of like settle and they don't even remember what that voice is. So for the 9-to-5ers, I say the following. The fact that you're listening to this podcast means that that voice, that spark hasn't been put out yet. And so when you say, how do you start? How do you do it? You start listening. to that damn voice. You start cultivating it. When somebody's crapping on it, saying that you can't be done, it shouldn't be done, it wouldn't be done, it couldn't be done. What are you doing taking this risk? You say the opposite. What if I took this risk and it does well? What if I grow as an individual? What if I gave life to this idea? What about it came and it did all this good for all these people, and it's something that can help and service and create value and give? Maybe I'm here on the face of the earth to do that. You give voice to it. And the second you give voice to that positive, good stuff starts to happen. But you can't crap on yourself. You got to bring that good voice out and recognize you're not going to know everything about it at all from the beginning. And hell with it. Just keep going anyway, because it'll work out. It will. I see it all day.
With the 300 plus companies in your portfolio, you obviously see it every day, and that is a great piece of advice. I'm going to have that clipped and put it on my Spotify playlist all the time. Just that listen to that little voice, and positive things will come of it.
But Phil, think about it. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here.
Please go off on as many tangents as you want.
From the time that we're kids in school, we get crapped on when it comes to that. It's like now certain things, maybe they kind of encourage it, but we're told you got to sit there. We're told you gotta do their work their way. You got to draw in the lines. You can't be your own person, your own thoughts. And I had experiences when I was young that I remember vividly having my ideas crapped upon, and I reacted opposite. I was like, well, F you. And so, I continued with that throughout. And some people don't have that. And I think it's a tragedy because it goes back to being a kid, and it goes back to still having those dreams and believing in yourself and the ability to go after them. It doesn't mean you're always going to make it in terms of the way or size or perhaps the way you thought that it would, but it does mean that actual simple act of taking that risk, taking that step, already you're a different person. And that in and of itself is an evolution that's worth taking.
I love that. Again, going to clip that. I'm going to listen to it all the time, because as you were saying that, I remember back when I was in school, we had to paint rocks and make it look like a person. And I painted, instead of using the lint that they were for the hair, I used paint to paint the hair in the back of the head. And I was told that it was completely wrong. That's not how we do it. And I'm like, but that's how I want to do it.
Right.
Like it should be able to be done. And I love it. I'm going to, already this episode is paying dividends for me. So I love it. Thank you, Chris. We are coming to the spark question of the show. It's near the end. I hate this because I'm having such a fun time talking with you, and I'm learning so much. But what's the bravest thing you've ever done?
The bravest thing I ever did was when I was in fourth grade, when I was 9 years old. I saw a group of individuals that were older than me, like 12, 13, 14 years old. And they took literally an apple core. It was on the street right outside my house. They took an apple core, they rubbed it around in pavement, and they proceeded to convince a special needs kid to go ahead and eat that apple core. Now, here's the thing. At the time I was 9 years old, these were older kids, and I wish I could give you this great ending that I went to his defense and beat these guys up and took a pummeling and everything else, but I didn't. I cowered it out, all right? But ever since that day, I made a promise to myself that I would never, ever do that again, and I would never let that happen. And so there's been multiple instances where, for lack of a better word, there's been a bully in some way, shape, or fashion, and I always choose that path as a result of not making the decision when I was 9 years old.
That's a monumental, life-changing event too. And
resulted in my marriage, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's already paid dividends, that
Yes.
That piece of advice and that event. Chris, we're coming to the end. I'm going to jump off screen here. Please let my audience know where they can connect with you, how they can help you, support you in any different way. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Yeah, sure. If you need to find me or look us up, you can find me at gusher.co, gusher.co, and I'm pretty reachable, and you can find me anywhere on the internet or LinkedIn. I'm pretty big there.
Excellent. Chris, thank you again for being on the show. It was an amazing time talking with you. I can't wait to listen back and catch everything I missed, because I know I missed at least a dozen pieces of advice in there. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes. You're going to be able to connect with Chris, and I guarantee you, if you have a conversation with him just from listening to this show, you'll have a life-changing experience. So thank you again, Chris. And to my audience, remember to always invest in yourself.